I've heard a lot of good things about the Taichi boards from ASRock, but they've been priced out of my league until now. I would normally be a little nervous about using some component that's as important as a motherboard if it was used. But my experience on Amazon is that every returned motherboard that I have purchased has been perfect. It's just apparently whoever bought it didn't know what they were doing or they bought the wrong part. I mean, who knows why the part was returned, but it's cheaper. Now, the only part, because Amazon will tell you, we don't guarantee that everything will be in the box. And I'm like, well, I need the motherboard, I need the IO shield. Anything else I could care less about. And on top of that, I have never gotten a motherboard used off Amazon that didn't have the IO shield, despite the disclaimer that it doesn't say the IO shield may not be included. It says that we're only selling you the board, basically, and that any, instructions may be missing or other little parts may be missing, but there's no other part you should need other than the IO shield. And they wouldn't sell the motherboard if the motherboard wasn't included. So anything else is, you're going to get the screws you need from your case manufacturer, SATA cables, who even uses SATA anymore? Everything's M.2. And if you wanted to buy SATA cables, you could. It's not the end of the line. And again, every used motherboard I've purchased from Amazon so far has had all of that stuff. I can't determine anything that's been missing. Here's what the box looks like. Got some fancy packaging, because that's important. Here's hoping everything's in there, but you can see, again, live and unscripted, I'm experiencing what you should expect to experience if you were to do the things I'm doing, right? If you were to order this board the way I did from Amazon Warehouse to save some money, is that an ideal thing to do? Well, if you're a technical person, yes. If you're doing your first build, no. Why would you do that to yourself? Now, somebody who's a technical person can probably work around whatever challenges they would know, for example, if something were missing right away, versus a first-time builder might reach a point in the build where the instructions say to get this part and plug it in. You'll say, I don't have that part. So you don't want to buy used products or refurbished products if you're a first-time builder. And you probably wouldn't want to go super high-end on your first build. Maybe take it down a notch, set yourself a nice build that's not too complicated, get that experience under your belt, boost your confidence, and then if you feel like you're ready to take on, level 2, then take it up a notch and do a little more complex of a build. Or maybe even, take it up to level 3 and go for something like this. But starting out at level 3, and especially starting out with any used component at all, is going to confuse you potentially as to whether or not you did something wrong, or you lost a part, or the part was bad. See, I don't know why this was returned. I don't know. Maybe it's bad. I don't know what Amazon does to test it, quite frankly. I don't know how good their testing is. But I know I can return it real easy. So that's where my confidence comes from. And I don't have a customer waiting for it. If a customer was waiting for it, I wouldn't have this luxury. Likewise, if you're building for yourself, those same considerations apply. There's 2 boxes in here. There's the main motherboard box. And then there's another box of some parts in there. Okay. Here's our board. IO shield is not built in. Look at that. Look at that. No built-in IO shield. That's interesting. So hopefully there's an IO shield in the box. I don't see any M.2 heat sinks like the Gigabyte board had. We've got M.2 here and here and here. So this also has 3 M.2 slots, just like Gigabytes, but they don't have heat sinks. The only point of the heat sink on an M.2 drive ultimately is for looks, aesthetics. It doesn't really do much as far as cooling goes. It just makes it look cooler. But that's our board. It's heavy too. But the other board was heavy, so they seem pretty identical. Come to mention it now, the I/O shield's not built into this one either. We got to pop that one out, and that's going to go. That's the Gigabyte one there. And these are not interchangeable. You can't take the I/O shield from one board and put it onto another board. It's nowhere near going to. It's just not going to align. So that's why the I/O shield's important. The machine will run without it. Like this case here, it doesn't even have a space for you to put an I/O shield. The whole back is open. It's an open design case. But that means children's hands can get in there. Peanut butter sandwiches can get in there. Small animals can get in there. Bugs, cockroaches, spiders, dog hair, cat hair, human hair can all go into this case, which is, in some environments, the exact opposite of what you need. Now here's hoping I have an I/O shield in here. Let's see what they've included. They've given us a couple of M.2 screws. It really seems like Amazon is including these screws, even for motherboards that don't have M.2 drives. It's almost like it's become such a popular missing item that they're just making sure that any return board gets these taped to the lid. Then in here, look at this, we have an I/O shield, and look, it's completely sealed. It's never been opened. Now, it's not like Amazon's got these laying around. This suggests to me whoever bought this board never installed it, because this I/O shield is specific to this motherboard only. It's not like Amazon that sells hundreds of different models of motherboards has these labeled in such a way that they can have just these pieces. No way. So that tells me that whoever ordered this board, it looks like they never used it. And then in this side of it, we've got our documentation. We've got a bridge to bridge two graphics cards together. And once again, the manual, which should identify, again, the tightening order. Remember, the wrench comes with the CPU, not with the motherboard. So everything appears to be there. We've got antennas for the Wi-Fi. And if I look right here in the beginning of the manual, we should see the same recommended tightening sequence for the CPU. There's our directions showing how to slot the Threadripper chip in. And there's a tutorial video with a QR code. Whether or not I want to install the board first or put the chip in, I kind of feel like this would be a good time to put the chip in. And I noticed on the motherboard just now, it even numbers those screws around the socket. See, the first one says 1, and then the lower right one says 2 with an arrow pointing down, and the lower left says 3. That's how critically important. I cannot underscore this enough. And I've had people write into me, seriously, and they said, those instructions that say you should tighten those things in a certain order? Well, they're not kidding. I stripped mine out. And I'm telling you in the hopes that you'll tell your viewers that's not something advisable. It's absolutely critical that you follow that tightening order, because it costs them a lot of money, because the manufacturer says, hey, that's not our fault, you broke it. So I'm going to start, I think, what do I want to do? Let's flip this box over in the hopes that you might be able to see a little better. And I'm going to loosen in the exact opposite order, right? So we're going to go 3 and then 2. And again, when you hear that clacking sound, that's because the bolt can't go any further out. And it looks like Amazon only tightened number 1 because 2 and 3 were loose. And you probably can't see anything. There it goes. That's spring loaded. See that? And this one will also be spring loaded. When I pull these blue tabs, See that? The socket looks like it's in great shape. We'll slide the protective cover out, and then we can slide the CPU in. This gets to be a little bit tricky in that you want to orient the orange frame around the CPU into this very thin effectively it's a frame itself, but there's little catches that you want to make sure that it's resting on to ensure that it's seated correctly. And it looks like I nailed it on the first try. What I'm looking at are the grooves. If you see the black frame of where I've just installed the CPU, and what can happen is it'll slide out like through the sides. And this is where people can have seating issues with their thread rippers, is over that. You want to watch this black, well, in this motherboard, this part is black, and it needs to sit on that ridge. And then there's two little tabs, which you probably can't see very well, right at the very bottom that seat down. And all you have to do, once this is seated correctly, you'll know, because when it's not seated properly, like when I was putting that little plastic piece in, the bottom part of it was swinging out. That means that I didn't have the ridges into the slots on the side of this metal frame here with these blue tabs on it. So now I should be able to push this straight down and lock it down, and then put the cover on. And we're going to tighten the cover by starting with the top one first. It says number 1. And we will wait to hear that click. There it is. Look, there's still plastic on the heatsink. That's good. Then we'll go to number 2, rotate that till it clicks. There it is. Then we'll go over to number 3. Okay, so that gets our chip installed. Oh, I got plastic here too. Look at this. This, I don't know why Amazon said this is a used board. It's pretty obvious to me. Nobody used this board. This is brand new. And we'll take the board, pick it up by the I/O shield, or use the heatsink in the edges. And we don't have to worry about any electrostatic potential causing any harm to anything. Lower that in. That's our new board installed, and we can hook up all those front port umbilicals. That'll go real quick because they're already pretty well routed to where we need them. We have a USB 3 cable that's going to go right down here. So that hooks up all the switches and front port umbilicals, everything. This is our power for a video card. This is our motherboard power right here. That's going to snap on just like that. We've got our 8-pin CPU power, which is typically over here. Now it's over here. And we can reroute this CPU power cable to this side. And simply plug it on just like that. Next, we can put the RAM in. So if we open all these up, and we can refer to the motherboard manual to determine which, since we're using 4 memory modules, which are the 4 modules we should be using. All you need to remember, an easy way to remember this, is we want a RAM module plugged on each edge, right? So we're going to take a RAM module, go right to the edge, align it, plug it in, then skip a track and do the next one. And then do the same thing on the other side. You go right to the edge, then skip a track and go to the next one. Now there's 64 gigs of memory installed. All we have to do is put our heatsink on. This is it, folks. We're already there. It's a pretty quick process. Expensive, but quick. Here we go. It's lit up. Yeah, rear fan is spinning. 3 fans in the front are spinning. Cooler's lit up. It's running. We've got some diagnostic LEDs happening on the motherboard down below. So far, we've got no video signal, but that's to be expected as it initializes and recognizes the RAM CPU we've installed. Diagnostic codes continue to happen down here on the bottom corner. Well, it's kind of the bottom middle. And we have a post screen. That's exactly what I want to see. Reboot and select proper boot device. This is a Windows 10 USB flash drive. I'm going to plug it in to a blue USB port. I'm going to try to plug it in. There it goes. Do I have a reset button? I just hit power, shut it off, hit power again, turn it back on. This time when it starts, the only bootable device will be that USB flash drive. It should boot to that all on its own. I'm not touching anything in the BIOS. Although I should at least reset the BIOS. And apparently I have to, because it's still saying no boot device, so something's not right. So for me to do this, I need to, first of all, I have to go full screen on my side. It won't make any difference to you guys. Oh, it did start. What did I do? I don't know what I did. I didn't do anything. Before I do anything, I'm going to shut it off because I do want to reset the BIOS. Because this is a used board, I don't know what somebody did to it. So we'll shut this off, turn it back on again. I'll start hitting, I don't know, delete or F2, whatever it is that'll get me in the BIOS. We can also see the version of the BIOS, see if there's a newer BIOS. Although this is a first gen chip, a newer BIOS could help with any sort of RAM compatibility. F2 to run UEFI setup. Okay, we're version 3.90. It recognizes the processor. We are quadruple channel memory mode. Everything's running exactly like it should. We'll head over to the exit where we can find loading the UEFI defaults. Yes. And the boot override, we want to be the SanDisk Extreme to boot. Well, actually, it's fine. Let's do this. We're going to save changes and exit. And then we're going to go back into it one more time. When it comes back up, just to ensure I boot in UEFI mode, I'm going to force it just because I'm so done with having any faith in this machine. I just want to manually control where it's booting from. So we'll do F2 again. F11 would have given me the boot menu. We'll go over to exit, and it says boot override, and I'm going to select UEFI SanDisk Extreme. That's the flash drive with the Windows 10 installation on it. And now that's going to start the Windows 10 installation media. And this should happen quick. If this machine's running like it should, this should be impressive. We're off to a good start. It does seem that this used motherboard from Amazon was not used at all. And it was almost $100 less. I'm looking at about $265 versus $340, somewhere around there. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all again very, very soon. Until then, bye for now.